everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I am your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, and we are all back from Ann Arbor, where we saw Michigan defeat USC 27-24. So, alongside of me in the studio, we got Connor Morrissette, Mr. Triple Double himself. Follow him on Twitter at @C_Morrissette. You can see 2 R's, 2 S's, 2 T's, and then also Chris Trevino. He's in studio. He blew through 10K. He's blew through 20K. I don't know where he's going now with his Twitter followers, but follow him on Twitter at Chris N. Trevino. We're all back. How you guys doing?
Hanging in there, but excited to be back. Excited to talk about a tough loss for USC, but still a lot of positives to take away from that game too.
I'm a little worn out from the travel. It's been
Yeah.
Connor's wired. I don't know if you could tell. He's had a coffee. He is locked in.
I was tired too, but I'm awake now.
And I just want to point out, I'm not doing a shotgun impression with my hat. I just have terrible travel hair.
Oh.
I don't have hair like these guys. These
I
guys
don't know. My
always,
hair's not looking great either.
always pristine.
I jumped in the shower. I had to wash the Spirit Airlines off of me. Sid in the chat says Jack's still hungover from drinks on the flight home. Maybe he's 21 now, but he has homework and stuff to do. He's like a student, So on the road games, he's not going to be able to host the Sunday Night Tunnel Vision. So I will move over, and then Chris moves over, and we all move over a seat, and we just kind of move things around. But we are live on YouTube and live on Facebook. So if you have comments for either one on either one of those platforms, hopefully they show up. But if you're on the Facebook one and watching a comment, please put a comment in the chat. See if I can put it up on the screen. Otherwise, I'll monitor it and grab it too. And we also will take live calls tonight. You want to call in and complain about what you saw from USC on Saturday afternoon at the Big House? Give us a call, 512-4TUNNEL. If you're not a member of USCFootball.com, make sure you go over there and subscribe. It's well worth it. If you haven't been a subscriber, you get a year for 30% off. It's like $60 or something. I mean, it's like a lunch, and you get the whole year of all kinds of content. Chris's Ghost Notes after games, after practices are must read. The Friday War Rooms are must read. You can only do that if you're a subscriber. But if you weren't there in Ann Arbor and you want to feel what it was like, from what the Uber ride was like to just walking through a tunnel to what the players said, anything what the sidelines were feeling like, and the stripe out or whatever they were doing at Michigan Stadium, read the Ghost Notes, and Chris has it all on lockdown. How many words were the Ghost Notes this week, Chris? It was like
3,200.
All right, that's a lot.
Yeah, they average around 2,200, but obviously, big game, big house deserves big game day Ghost Notes. I screwed that up, but you guys got it.
No, they were great. They were great Ghost Notes. Connor and I were in the press box. Chris was down on the field shooting field level highlights, and we had Shotgun was in town with his roommate Megan, who works for CBS, and so she was there for another capacity. So we all got to be there, have some Detroit style pizza, which I give a couple thumbs up. I thought
that was delicious.
That was really good. It was a late night pizza for us, but that was
fun.
That was good. But yeah, we had the whole crew there, and Jack was there. I got a little feel for Jack is a student radio announcer, so him and MJ were up in one level above us, but it was open air there in the press box. It was pretty like you're sealed in there. You didn't get the feel for what the crowd was like. But pregame, I went up there, met a bunch of the Michigan video guys. They were asking me questions and talking stuff. So they let me put the headphones on to hear the stadium noise when they were doing the Michigan, the #1 university in the world. They had this whole montage thing of what was going on, and the guy wanted me to hear it. So it was cool. Good hospitality. It was a lot of fun. All of us, first time in the Big House. It was hard to get a feel for what the noise level was where we were in the press box. 110,000 people. That's a lot of people packed in the game. I mean, what was it like down there on the field, Chris, for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was loud, and obviously 100,000 people in the stadium is going to be loud. But I didn't feel like, this is an intense level of loudness. It didn't really feel that way until the fourth quarter, obviously. Dramatic fourth quarter. So that is when it really kind of took it to another level. But throughout the game, I didn't feel like this is another level of loudness. To be honest, I feel like Salt Lake City in Utah was a little bit louder consistently throughout the whole thing. That was kind of a louder stadium, in my opinion. I know it's less people, but just the sound just leaks out of that stadium at the Big House. So It was cool to just go to a iconic venue like the Big House, though. So I bucket list checked.
For sure, bucket list for me too. Like, I was thinking this year I'm not going to travel as much and
You
enjoy the
always
Big
say
Ten.
that. I feel like.
But now it's the Big Ten. I gotta go. Like all these places I haven't been. Like I've been to Minnesota, but Maryland. I haven't heard much good about that. But it'll be fun to go there.
I remember last year before the Cal game, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go, and then we went, and what a game that was. But
I know
things are a lot different now. That's for sure.
But it's definitely the travel thing is real. I mean, the 3-hour time difference is a lot. We left. Connor and I left like 12:30, and we didn't land till 8 p.m. And so, I know there were some questions for Lincoln Riley if they would go a day early. They went, Friday morning. I don't know if that had much to do with it, but I mean, it's all part of the road games are hard, not just because the crowd is this loud or that loud. They end up having four false start penalties. So, I mean, I think that came into effect, but just it looked like USC wasn't, off a bye week. The long travel, I don't think it helped, if that makes sense.
No, I don't think it helped either, but I just look at the offensive line, and people have dissected it and talked a lot about it, but if you preach that you want to be a developmental program and you want to rely on bringing in high school recruits, develop them, and have a good product, I mean, that was a tough blow for Josh Henson and Lincoln Riley in that capacity. And, yeah, maybe it was a little bit of the travel. I'm sure the noise didn't help. Texas, for as talented as their offensive line is, they had some false start issues against Michigan in the Big House, so that wasn't exclusive to USC. But when the plays were clean in the USC-Michigan game, it was a lot uglier on the USC offensive line than it was for Texas's offensive line. And that's a fantastic offensive line, so it's a little tough to compare the two. But your USC, I felt like they had a really good opportunity to go into the Big House, win the game. We all felt like that was a winnable game, and it was. They had a really great opportunity at the end. Fewer mistakes from that offensive line, and they probably do walk out of there with a victory. And to Ryan's point, I don't know if specifically the travel affected some of those guys, but you say you want to be a developmental program, and then your second year starting left tackle gets benched, your second year starting right guard in the first half gets benched. That was tough for the coaches to take, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just missed opportunity. I think you just said it. So I think that's the overall theme of Saturday. It's just USC walked in there and they got punched in the mouth really, really hard. Like really, really hard. They had blood in their mouth going into the locker room. And then they came out a different team and they put in the work for the comeback and they earned the lead for that comeback. And then it just slipped right out of their hands. Just like they had it in their grasp. And just like a silk scarf smoothly pulled out. It was brutal for USC fans. I know there was a lot of long faces in the crowd leaving on the plane rides back to wherever they were going, especially to Los Angeles. So I know it was a painful one, and they don't want to talk about moral victories, and I'm not about moral victories as well, but there were some good things. They almost won this game, and I think you did prove a lot that you could hang. You were this close to winning in the Big House in your first Big Ten game, despite playing terribly for most of the game on offense with a ramshackle offensive line that needs a lot of work, and I'll give my thoughts on that a little bit later. But you showed that you are good enough to win in the Big Ten. I know it doesn't feel like that because you got the loss, but that defense is legit. They came to play. And I'm going on record. The defense did not lose this game.
No, God, no.
I know.
It certainly was not.
It certainly was not. I know that the missed tackle is what everyone's talking about, or the big sore spot on this performance. But you gave Michigan 7 points on a pick six. Yeah. They only gave up 20 points. And, yeah, they gave up that missed tackle that led to the game-winning touchdown. But the only reason you were able to come back is because that defense played its ass off all night, even when they were taking some hits, giving up some big runs. So I think Jordan, losing it right here. Help me, producer. But I think overall, okay, I'm going to stop talking because it's really...
Yeah, hold on. I'll take a look at that for 1 second. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chris. And I'm going to have to play around with the cord there a little bit, make sure that's
Can we get Chris on the regular mic, or is that a pain?
Yeah, we can do that too. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think a couple of things looking in this. the play of the offensive line was surprising to me. We thought that there would be having a disadvantage there is okay. Michigan has a couple first-round draft picks that are playing on the defensive line, interior guys. Michigan's pass rush hasn't been great through the first 3 games. All games at home, a couple of overmatched opponents, certainly not against Texas. And they were getting home against USC. And it was, if you look at the PFF grades, I know that doesn't mean everything, but it was like a historic low as far as grades go for the pass protection. It just was awful to the point that Lincoln Riley had to make some moves in the second half. Now, the moves seemed to work, which is good, but then you're wondering, well, why didn't you make those moves earlier? But it was as bad as I've seen. Like that, I think when you're talking about this game, for Michigan to win, they needed USC's offensive line to have a complete collapse because the game plan they were using was we are not going to throw the ball unless absolutely necessary. And they would try to throw the ball when it wasn't necessary, and then when it was necessary, not throw it. Even that final drive where you only had 4 minutes, it was going to be really tough to grind out all of it on runs unless you broke a big run, and they end up doing that. But the way you can combat a team that's trying to play like that is by scoring and getting the lead. And USC couldn't when they couldn't get a first down the first 3 or 4 drives or whatever because they just had zero. The run blocking was bad. They couldn't get anything going there, and then they couldn't protect Miller Moss, which was surprising. I think you could be at a disadvantage there, but not like a complete loss. And it was a complete loss from that. And that basically put USC's offense nowhere for a half. And then they started scoring in the second half, but still wasn't perfect. There were some mistakes and things like that. But there's just to be off the chart, not even part of the game in the first half, plays right into a team that they're only going to run the ball. Like you score a couple touchdowns and you make them try to do something else. But Michigan never had to, even in that final drive. If you could have got the lead in the third quarter and and then you get another 3 and out, you force Michigan to try to do something they're uncomfortable doing. USC never got to force Michigan to do what they didn't want to do because the offense was so bad. And I was just shocked that the offensive line was that bad because we know the defensive line was good, but they hadn't generated pressure in the first 3 games like they did in that one.
Totally agree with you, Ryan. And what did we say on Thursday night? If the USC defense can hold Michigan to 20 or fewer, we really like USC's chances with Lincoln Riley calling the plays and Miller Moss under center. What would kill them is if the offensive line had a total stinker, which is pretty much what happened, or if Miller Moss had a pick 6, and then that ends up happening. So that really hurt them as well. And it was costly mistakes, and ultimately, even with those mistakes, Michigan has 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, and if USC stops them right at the end there, they win the game. So even with all those errors, USC still almost overcame them, but ultimately they end up coming up just a little bit short. So it's really a tough spot to be in because I feel like they could have certainly won that game, but in the end, I think when you look back at what was ultimately responsible for the loss, offensive line, you start there, and then the Miller Moss pick 6, it's tough to get on him too much when I felt like he played a heroic game under pressure a lot and did really well, but you can't make that mistake, and he acknowledged it after the game. That's a killer. It's so hard to win on the road against a good team when you give the other team 6 points.
Yeah. Chris, how's your mic doing?
Let's check.
It is not.
Let's get just
Yeah,
the
let's use
regular
the other
one.
mic. But you can use the headphones.
Technical difficulties.
This is show business.
Yeah,
When things happen live. Hello?
Oh, hold on. Is that one going?
Hello?
Sorry.
Turn me up.
Yeah, 1 second. All right. Connor, you can talk for a second, and we'll
Okay. Well, am I on now? I feel like I'm not on.
try that.
Hello. Okay, now I'm back. Sorry, folks.
We are the equivalent of the USC offensive line.
Yes,
right now.
yes. But anyway, okay, so let me get back on track. I pulled out some notes here because I did want to talk a little bit more in depth about that USC offensive line. And you got to compare it to, even though it's tough to do, like I said, Texas is probably the best offensive line in the country, but they went into Michigan and they played a clean game for the most part. USC's offensive line didn't. And just looking at what Texas has at its disposal, it's similar, and it's interesting to look at compared to USC. So Texas has 2 starters on its offensive line who were there before Steve Sarkisian, and USC has 2 starters on its line who were there before Lincoln Riley, so you can kind of cross those out. And then they have 2 younger guys who are 5-star players who all played last year, and or both played last year and were really good. And if you're USC, you're relying on Elijah Page, who just didn't have a good game. But then the depth behind those guys, it just really could have helped if USC had recruited a little bit better on the offensive line, is the point I'm trying to make. Where Texas, they go into Texas, which is their own recruiting ground. They get 2 5-star guys. Steve Sarkisian builds that offensive line up. I believe when he took the Texas job over, they had more wide receivers on scholarship than offensive line. So he inherited some talented players, but there wasn't a lot of depth. And now they have the best offensive line room in the country. USC, it's the third year of Lincoln Riley. Sarkisian's in his fourth year. But even last year, that offensive line powered Texas to the college football playoff. And comparing where USC is at now, you'd hope that in the third year of Lincoln Riley, that offensive line would be a lot better. The defense is a lot better, clearly. The offensive line isn't, and that really cost them against Michigan. And when you're comparing it to a team like Texas, a team that's where you ultimately want to be, their offensive line is awesome. They've recruited really well. USC, their offensive line right now isn't as good. They haven't recruited as well. I think that's sort of the equation right there. You got to recruit better in the trenches, and that when I made my preseason prediction that I still know is going to be wrong, they'll be better than 7-5. I was really concerned about the offensive line depth, and we saw that rear its ugly head against Michigan on Saturday.
Yeah. How you doing, Chris? We got you?
Am I here?
Yes. Okay.
Look at you. You're here.
Can I go on a small rant for a second?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't rant a lot, but all offseason, I was terrified of the offensive line depth, which is why it flummoxed me, bamboozled me as to why USC did not bring in anyone out of the transfer portal for this offensive line. Now, yeah, you want to get a starter, and I know they were burned by their offensive line pickups last season. It really kind of hurt them, didn't mesh well away, and obviously we saw the results of that offensive line. But still, I would have done everything in my power to get an offensive tackle that can play either side, preferably a left tackle, so you don't have to throw Elijah Page straight into the fire, and someone to provide more depth across the board. You get a veteran guy, you got Elijah Page, you got Tobias Raymond, who I'll mention Tobias Raymond in a little bit, but those are at least another guy in there. And then I would have gone all out for a center. Now I know you're like, Chris, you don't want to recruit a center out of the portal. You don't want to spend a scholarship on a center. But I still think the best line, and I'm on record of saying this, the best line is Jonah Monheim is at guard, not at center. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad center. I'm just saying they're better across the board if you have Jonah and Emmanuel as your guards. You can do whatever you want with Mason. If you get that veteran left tackle, you have a veteran center in the middle. That is my hot take, and I'm going to die on this hot take, that they are better across the board if they had fortified the other guard spot with Jonah and found a center and a tackle. End of rant.
Love it.
Yeah, no, and it's not even a hot take. I think against LSU, we saw Alani Noah have a costly false start, but USC was able to overcome that mistake against Utah State. The line did really well because Utah State just isn't that talented. And then their first road game, Michigan, they're not going to play in another environment like that against the defensive front that's as talented, but they still failed epically. And to your point, Chris, all offseason we're banging the drum. The offensive line needs help. The offensive line needs help. First 2 games happen, we're like, oh, maybe they'll be okay. And then for them to fail as spectacularly as they did, that was alarming. And now you wonder, what are guys' confidence like heading into Wisconsin? What's the line going to look like? And they absolutely have an opportunity to bounce back. Michigan on the road, that's the toughest spot they'll be in. But the confidence from the fans, from probably on the inside too, and some of the guys just themselves probably took a real big hit in this game, and now they need to bounce back. And I think that'll determine the fate of the season. If they do bounce back and play really well, this is a team that I still think can make the college football playoff. But if they play like they did against Michigan in the future, you can't win a lot of games that way.
They will only go as far as this offensive line will take them.
Yeah. They need that play more for sure. Play better. We have a super chat, so pull it up there. We're going to get to some questions and stuff. Oh, Rick, the toughness we all wanted to see was evident. Everything else is just scheme choices and position issues. Sorry, that was not the super chat, but that was a different comment.
He got in there for free.
He got in there for free. James, do you guys think it was an inspired Michigan defense, or is USC's offensive line that bad? Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
Mix of both.
I mean, they needed this win. I mean, they were going to come in here with a lot of pride,
Yeah.
They have good players on the defensive front. They had the wounded animal vibe to them. You know, they needed this win against USC. They needed this win in their house to keep their season, their chances of returning to the playoff alive. So, yeah, they had an extra spirited defensive line probably. But, again, there's a lot of pride on both sides. So, USC definitely needed to bring it, and they did not bring it for most of this game. They brought it a little bit at times, but not enough to consistently move that offense. Obviously, in the second half they did. But, again, they were punched very, very hard, almost like double-fisted. Double-fisted.
Yeah. The fact that they came back,
double-fisted.
though, was impressive. But you're right. This was the fourth straight home game for Michigan. They switched quarterbacks. USC couldn't see anything of what this Alex Orji thing was going to be like. It was basically what you thought it was going to be, 32 yards passing, 290 yards rushing. Yeah, I think this was sort of like a circle the wagons kind of game. And that happens. I mean, we talked about this. Like, if this was played on a neutral site or in the Coliseum, it might have been completely different. And it's not just because it was hard to hear. It's just this was, there was a lot going on there. But this is the way college football is. And part of the head coach's job and the team's job is you have to get up for every game. I thought USC did a nice job coming off LSU. Huge win, emotional win. They acted like they won the national championship and then shut out the next opponent. But then you got a bye, and then you got a long travel, and a team that's wounded animal in the corner. You got to get up for that one too. And USC was not ready for that one. They did not come out and play well. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things where you got to do this each and every week. And if you want to try to win, USC's schedule is tough. There's teams that can beat you week in and week out. So you have to bring it every week. And USC brought it for a quarter and a half in this game and not the rest.
To answer James' question, like I said off the top, I do think it was a little bit of both. Michigan came out with their hair on fire. They knew they needed to win that game. But also, like Josiah Stewart, he is a really good edge rusher for Michigan. Their top-graded PFF guy coming into the game, most pressures. Like, that's a matchup where, okay, if he's going against the USC left tackle, that's a matchup where you got to do a little bit better. And Elijah Page really struggled in that one, and that's why that matchup ultimately decided his fate, and that's why he went to the bench. And then you saw when they made the changes, Tobias Raymond comes in at right tackle, Mason Murphy goes to left tackle, Alani Noah returns at right guard. The line to start the second half settled down, but then at the end of the game, once Michigan sort of started to understand what USC was doing with some of those changes, we still saw some mistakes. On the play, Miller Moss fumbled, where Woody Marks makes that unbelievable strip of the offensive lineman. Tobias Raymond got beat on that play. Mason Murphy made a few mistakes as well. So it did get better in the second half, but it still wasn't perfect. I think Michigan, they were playing inspired football for sure, but I look at the USC offensive line and I say they certainly had some issues too. So like Lincoln Riley always said, it's never as good as it looks. It's never as bad as it looks. It's probably somewhere in between. I do think the offensive line is better, but comparing it to Texas again, they allowed 7 pressures to Michigan. USC allowed 21, their offensive linemen. So just not where you need to be.
No. We're going to talk about the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
We have a statement from Jacob. People overlooked the defensive adjustments made in the second half. Before Michigan's last drive, they had 9 total yards on offense in the second half. Busted plays were the key to the game. And, no, 100%. And Lincoln Riley talked about this afterwards. If I'm recalling off the top of my head, Michigan's second half drives were 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, fumble, 3 and out. And then the very first down was the 63-yard run. That's the first down that Michigan had. And if you look at like the average rushing versus like the median or whatever, I mean, there was a lot. Most of the rushes were shut down. But unfortunately, 3 of them were big, 2 for long touchdowns and 1, that 63-yarder that led to another touchdown. And that's tough to overcome. And I think that's the one thing that we talked about this defense doing well is that the last couple of years, if somebody missed a tackle, it seemed like it was gone. And we hadn't seen that really through the first couple of games. And, they were putting a lot of guys in the box and really doing a good job shutting it down, but they broke some big ones. And I think Danton Lynn would be the first guy to say, you can have some plays that bust, but bust for 12 yards, not 45 or 63. And that's what I think maybe was the most uncharacteristic thing of it. But you couldn't have asked the defense to do any more. They give up 0 first downs until late in the fourth quarter in the second half.
Yeah, the second half defense, they were almost perfect. They were this close to being perfect. Couple missed tackles on that Mullings long run, And even still, they get it to a 4th and goal at the 1, and you make that stop, you're back to perfect outside of the one big rush. Unfortunately, Michigan is able to score. I thought D'Anton Lynn did make some adjustments. I went back and watched some of the big runs, and early in that game, USC was just getting outmanned at the line of scrimmage, and I think even D'Anton Lynn was caught off guard a little bit by how much Michigan was going to run the ball. I think they thought Alex Orji would throw it a little bit more, and we could see that with some of the alignments. On the first Mullings touchdown run, Michigan has 6 guys on the offensive line, and USC only rushes 4 down linemen. And then on the Donovan Edwards run, it was even more apparent. They had some guys bring pressure on the outside. It was 8 offensive linemen for Michigan, including a fullback, and then only 5 at the line of scrimmage for USC, whereas in the second half we saw USC put more guys in the box. It was a lot more 6 down linemen. It was just more, you got to beat us through the air. We're not going to let you get anything. And that adjustment worked really well. They had 6 down linemen on the Mullings 63-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter, 63-yard run in the fourth quarter, not the touchdown. Just missed some tackles there. And then my one pet peeve that sort of bothered me looking back at this game, on the 4th and goal, Michigan, it was so clear what they were going to do. They had 9 people on the line of scrimmage. They were running that ball. And USC, they only had 8 guys on the defensive line and a few people behind the play a little bit. And then it was just a numbers game. Michigan had 1 more. They're always going to get the push. And ultimately, on a second effort, they score that touchdown. I wonder if D'Anton Lynn could go back. Would he put all 11 at the line of scrimmage maybe to really try to slow down Michigan? But you can't really have that many second guesses because the USC defense, in my opinion, played exceptionally outside of 3 plays. So I'm not going to hammer them for that. I did feel like they made some adjustments in the second half. Shout out to Lynn for that. In the first half, maybe they expected a little bit more pass than Michigan was comfortable doing, and then they adjusted, and then in the second half they almost played perfect. So a couple mistakes defensively, alignment-wise, but, I mean, you can't get mad at what they did defensively. I go back to what I said early on. This game, for me, was lost on the offense.
And given the added context that USC's offense was crap in the first half, so you're consistently sending them back out there in front of this crowd as they're trying to make something happen, and it's hot, and they're tired. But I'll give them credit. I'm down there on the sideline. USC's defense never lost its juice.
No.
Yeah, maybe dropped a little bit, when it's 14-13, but for the most part, they were always locked in. They always had confidence in themselves. So I give them a lot of credit for not backing down, for not getting lost in the weeds after, being down 14 points and giving up 14 points, which would be, devastating to a lot of teams. Last year's team, oh my goodness, they would have been donezo. It would have been 35-3 at the halftime, whatever. But yeah, they got them back in this game, started with the defense. So plenty of credit to them. And I think I'll use this time to just shout out Eric Gentry once again, just another impressive game. Tied for first in the Big Ten with tackles for a loss, 3 this game. He's had multiple tackles for a loss in his first 3 games. He's already set a new career high in tackles for a loss in 3 games, surpassing the 12 games he played as a freshman at Arizona State. So he is just playing at an All-American level right now. He is the lightning rod for the defense. I said it a lot this week. I'm continuing to say it. He is maybe not the captain on paper, but he is the leader of this defense in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Hard to argue. He's been amazing. But yeah, it's a tough one. People want to the defense played well outside of really 3 plays. Like outside of those 3 plays, you think they played pretty well. We have another super chat. Thanks for that. From Lance, Donovan Edwards' touchdown should have been negated by penalty. Mullings' TD shouldn't have ever happened or even happened.
I agree with the second part. The other one, you could call holding on every play.
Someone in the chat said there was 49 rushes and not a single holding call. So they were they should call at least once. So
statistically.
The second part's true. That 4th down spot, I don't know how they didn't even review it. And I don't get mad at Lincoln Riley for not taking a timeout. It shouldn't be his job to make sure the officials review a play. That's on the officials. He's calling the game. He can only do so much. So some people are like, why didn't you take a timeout? He messed that up. No, that's on the officiating. As for the Edwards play, I think it was Humphrey. Was he held or one of the defensive backs? Yeah, a little bit, but you got to get over that one. USC, at the end of the day, they had 1 play to win the game, 4th and goal from the 1-yard line with all the officiating mistakes, and they just didn't make that 1 play. Does that sting? Does especially the Mullings touchdown, that hurts. And I totally hear what fans are saying. That play never should have happened for sure. But I just hate when, on this play there was holding, and on this play it never should happen, and this and this and this. At the end of the day, they had one play to make to win the game, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I agree with the second part, too. When you go back and watch it, it's really close,
Yeah.
but it does look like he's
Because
clearly
the
a little
ball's
bit
in the other hand.
And I'm shocked they didn't even measure it at all.
I know,
I mean, it's not like in the fourth quarter or nothing, but it's still a big play that could decide everything.
Well, yeah, the touchdown the next round.
Yeah, so, I mean, just a baffling decision to not at least look at it. Take a second to look at it. It's a big game, CBS.
Yeah.
You're on prime time. Just take a look at it.
Well, then they reviewed a USC first down later to say, oh, we messed that up, and then there was clearly a first down. So I understand the frustration. People were upset about the Makai Lemon hit. I need to get a closer look at that. I still didn't really see from the press box.
Yeah, it was hard to tell.
The officiating for sure. I don't want to say favored Michigan, but I think they got more of the calls for sure. So maybe it did favor them. I don't know.
That's part of the thing there. But I mean, you get blown off the offensive line. That's you could win the game without some help from the refs if you just do your job. Peps in the comments for Facebook. All this being said, can you imagine how good USC can be if they would have played 4 good quarters of football? All these negative takes, but a win seemed a tackle away.
Yeah, they were right there. And if the offensive line can clean up its mistakes, what's the weakness on the team? I think if you protect Miller Moss, he's a strength. The running backs, they showed what they have. I still really like what I'm seeing from Quentin Joyner. Woody Marks had that big run, and his stats at the end of the game, even with USC's offensive line struggles, look pretty good. I know some people aren't too happy with Zachariah Branch. I feel like he played a really good game outside of a few things here and there, but I think he's getting too much crap today. Defensively, the whole unit, I think, is a strength. So if the offensive line can clean up its mistakes, and you look at the schedule the rest of the way, there's not another road game that's as tough as Michigan. USC still has an awesome opportunity. Depth and injuries are a concern. We saw Lake McCree take a serious hit to his bad knee, and Makai Lemon got popped on that special teams play. Keely Arnold went out of the game at the end, so hopefully those guys are healthy, although for a couple of them it doesn't really look good. If they stay healthy, fix the offensive line, which both of those things are realistic in my opinion, they can still have a really good year.
No, I agree with you. And this is one of those things where I think a lot of things sort of had to go wrong for USC to lose this game, to be honest. And a lot of it did, in giving up that to have, one of your best players, Kamari Ramsey, cleaning up that tackle normally. And it seemed like he thought Humphreys had it taken care of, so he didn't do as much. But 9 times out of 10, he's making that. It just seems like a lot of those things where things just sort of had to go Michigan's way, and they did. And that, that's part of football. That's fine. But you got to be able to overcome that. And the fact that USC came back and actually took the lead in the game late after throwing the pick 6 and just sort of giving Michigan every opportunity, that was, the killer after USC took the lead, get the ball back and then do nothing with it and throw a couple of terrible shovel passes. I don't know what they were doing. Didn't get any clock off. And then, allowing that big run. It just seemed like at that point, I think the USC was 95% to win at that point. It was that's not good to lose that one.
Can I throw out something?
Oh, yeah.
Just going into that, the poor called drive by Lincoln Riley where you take 2 shovel passes. Do you think he was a little too confident in his defense?
I think so. I mean, they hadn't gotten a freaking first down up until then, so maybe that was part of it, and he felt like in his back pocket, they're not going to run again, and then Mullings just makes a hell of a play, so maybe that was part of it. Because I think, imagine if they had called 3 run plays, and they only gained 9 yards or something, and then they have to punt. What would be saying, Lincoln Riley was too conservative, he should have thrown the ball, they should have gotten a first down. Everyone is upset now because not enough time went off the clock, which I understand. The play calls weren't great. And I'm not saying, anything differently with that, but I feel like if he did play the way people wanted him to and just grind the clock in that situation, they still probably could have lost. Ultimately, the offensive line on that series wasn't very good either.
Yeah.
But the play calling wasn't great either.
No,
I thought Riley owned it.
He talked about not being very good either. So I think that's a fair assessment. But there were some really weird calls. I told Connor in the press box, I love the way that Lake McCree has been getting involved in the offense, but he's catching balls 8-10 yards down the field. They threw him, I think, 4 passes until he got hurt on one of them at the line of scrimmage, and he's not a yards after the catch kind of guy, and Michigan was all over it. And I'm not sure. I'd rather leak him out and then just get him the ball where he catches it is a positive gain, not I'm going to throw it to him and then he's got to run for some kind of positive gain. And I just mentioned that he did it once, or maybe it was the second time. I'm like, why is Lincoln Riley doing that? And he did it again, and I was like, it gets stuffed again. And then unfortunately he got hurt on that one. So there were definitely some weird sort of play calls, but I get when you're watching your offensive line get decimated, like you're trying to do something maybe a little too much. But to me, it's like you got to push it down the field a little bit. You can't just throw stuff at the line of scrimmage. Michigan was all over that. And the injury updates, we don't have any. I know some people were talking about in the chats. We don't have any injury updates yet. Bless you. We'll hear from Lincoln Riley on Trojans Live on Monday. And if he doesn't talk about the injuries, we'll ask him on Tuesday, and he may or may not talk about them.
To your point about Lake McCree, 3 catches for -3 yards. So there you go. The proof's in the pudding. And it was so sad to see the clip of him with Eric Gentry next to him and Greedy Vance next to him when he was crying on the bench. It looks like a re-aggravation or like a re-injury to his bad knee. So I hope he gets good news from a doctor. But the early indications just based on that image from CBS did not look good. And I think, Ryan, like, Lake McCree has sort of been like a secret weapon a little bit. LSU really didn't expect to see much of him, and he has the good game. Utah State, they were running him down the field a little bit. I think Lincoln Riley thought Lake McCree, maybe he's still not totally on people's radars, and he's gone down the field a lot. Maybe Michigan will cover that a little bit, but if we can get him the ball around the line of scrimmage, we might be able to scheme him open and scheme some stuff. And I think they tried to do some things that they did against LSU, and Wink Martindale did his homework. The Michigan defense did their homework, and they didn't let Lake McCree beat them like some other teams had in the past. So I think that was just a check for that Michigan defense. They were better prepared to stop Lake McCree than other teams on USC's schedule so far.
Yeah. Someone in the chat, let me see. Oh, it's Andrew says, when are you guys going to call out Lincoln for not winning big games? All right, we're not calling people out for not. Like, Lincoln's won a lot of big games in his career. He's 40 years old. He's been to multiple playoffs, won multiple conference championships.
Beat LSU.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about ranked teams. Like USC, like 2 of the last 3 teams, 3 of the last 4 they've played were ranked, and they beat 2 of them. One of them without his starting quarterback. So this was I think you can put some of the blame for sure on Lincoln Riley for this one. It's one of those weird ones where it's not coming out the way. I said USC did is play ABC poker. If you just play like your normal game and you'll beat Michigan. Well, they weren't doing anything in the first half that was normal. And they still almost came back and won. But I think, the head coach could have certainly helped with a lot of things. I mean, he'll look at his performance and probably not be happy with it. But to have a complete breakdown on the offensive line, make some adjustments, come back, make some of the plays. I mean, there's some great individual plays. Eric Gentry and Woody Marks he had that big run when they couldn't run the ball really at all. The sack fumble, to be first and goal from the 2 and recover a fumble just to get that back again. There was just some stuff that was kind of head scratching in that, and they still, had a chance to win the game at the end. And not giving up a 63-yard. You don't give up a 63-yard run. Give up a bunch of 10-yard runs, and Michigan's not winning that game.
I do get the question, but I think looking at it from 10,000 feet, if you're a USC fan, you have to be happy with how the team looks overall. And going into the season, I know some people maybe said they'd go 3-0 for these first 3 games, but the best case scenario, realistically, before they kicked a ball off, was to go 2-1, and they've gone 2-1. So we can get on Lincoln Riley for not winning some of the big games. I understand it. I read Antonio Morales' story in The Athletic, and he compared this loss to the regular season Utah loss in USC's first season with Riley, where they had a chance to win. There were some unfavorable calls. They just lacked a little bit of toughness at the end of the game, and it was similar in that regard. So if you're a USC fan, I understand that might be a little bit frustrating, but let's see how the rest of the season goes, because I do think that USC will have a lot of opportunities to win some big games, especially the Penn State one, especially the Notre Dame one at home. The way this defense is playing, the way D'Anton Lynn has coached those guys up, and then offensively, I do think the unit is going to get better as the season goes on. Again, health, of course, is really important there for both sides of the ball. But let's not hammer them right now when everything is still in front of them. I still think they have a really good opportunity. And right now, I don't think it's the right time to say, he can never win the big game.
Yeah,
their defense is so much better than it was last season. You don't have to go to the big house again. Some of those road environments will be tough, of course. It's not going to be easy, but the road games the rest of the way really shouldn't be anything like this Michigan game. You have some tough matchups at home. If they lose like 2 or 3 games the rest of the way and it's not pretty, then I can get there. But I still think this team has a great chance.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Hey, we have a live call. You want to take it?
Sure.
We got Dave in Iowa, our buddy.
Dave,
welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, can you guys hear me? All I hear is static.
Barely hear you.
Dave.
Can you try it now?
What was that? I couldn't hear you. It was just
Okay.
static.
Well, we'll have to. Sorry about that, Dave. We're I don't know what you can try to call back. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, Dave. I'm sure not very happy because he can be kind of critical. Let's see.
Like an SNL sketch.
Yeah, I think we might have him back. Let's try it.
Dave.
Hey, Dave, you there?
2QD. You want to talk about the tough loss yesterday?
Yeah, hey, Dave, you there? All right. This does not seem like it's going. This is like
Dave.
can't hear him.
Did he have a comment line? Comment line said, "Bad offensive line." No.
Let's see. USC's depth chart for week 1. Depth chart for week 1? I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on.
Dave, just call back and write your question in.
Yeah, just do it in the chat. Just do it in the chat because the phone isn't working for some reason. We're having all kinds of fun technical things going on today.
I'm telling you, we're the O-line. We're the O-line first quarter. We're going to come back a little bit better in the second half.
Yeah. Well, let's do. I have some questions in the chat we can get to. I'll pull those up. We're going to get rid of this live caller thing.
Can I ask you a quick question, though?
Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
What happened to Moneybags Manford?
I don't know.
Is he still around?
I'm not sure where he is. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. If he was betting on USC to cover the spread, it worked for 2
I'm
weeks.
just saying, has he been on the Peristyle chat?
I haven't seen him.
Okay, well, Moneybags, I miss you.
Yeah, we miss you, buddy. Sid, more frustrating. Poor officiating by a former Pac-12 crew or poor play calling by Lincoln Riley with 4 minutes to go and a chance to ice the game.
Probably the play calling. I mean,
Yeah, officiating, what are you going to do?
it happens. Bad calls, missed calls, whatever, that happen all the time in college football. So
Yeah.
I would probably take the play calling as more frustrating because you almost won despite all the bad calls or no calls you got on Saturday.
That's how I feel too, because USC had the chance to win the game right there. Forget the officials for a second. You execute there, a couple first downs, maybe even kick a field goal, make it a little bit tougher for Michigan. So, what are you going to do? Tough break both ways there.
Yeah. Eddie says, why didn't they chip the defensive end? Number 0 killed us.
Question for Danton Lynn. I know he's not going to give us a good answer, but I want to ask him on Wednesday, what did this game teach you, or what did you learn? What adjustments would you have made now that you've watched the tape? He'll probably give some coach speak answer, but I'm really fascinated by that because they played close to perfect football in that second half. I really didn't feel like they could have done anything differently. The adjustments that he wanted to make came at halftime where they put more guys at the line of scrimmage, and then they just don't bring down Mullings on that big 63-yard run in the fourth quarter. So I wonder what he learned. Maybe he could answer that question here if he was on the show. Or I guess that's an.
He's asking about the defensive end.
Yep. That's a not enough sleep answer for me.
Connor's locked into the defense.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean,
USC
On our
defensive
A
end.
game tonight, folks.
I'm not fully on my rewatch yet. I'm still like not midway through. USC just scored in my rewatch in
Yeah.
the second half. So I'm still, but it looked like they did put a tight end out there to help, like Tobias Raymond at times.
That's what Super OC Holmes was asking about. Did they keep a tight end or running back to help the offensive line out? Sometimes.
I saw them line up a tight end over there. I mean, I have to watch more. I'm just starting to watch more Tobias Raymond, who I do want to shout out because being thrown into that mix
Yeah.
as a redshirt freshman with no top or not like key minutes played at all in your USC career, and to be thrown into the big house, be like, hey, we need you to go at it right tackle and go against a national championship defensive line from last year. I mean, he wasn't like an All-American out there, but he played better than what they got in the first half and was able to get the ball going. And yeah, he had some freshman mistakes, but when he got his hands on guys, they weren't coming off. He was being physical, and you see him, he's a big dude. So Tobias Raymond, I think that's a cool storyline to follow moving forward. Maybe he's going to be the guy moving forward. Maybe you're able to move Mason Murphy inside if you want to go back and trust Elijah Page back at left tackle.
Yeah.
You trust him again. He's your left tackle. Tobias is your right tackle. Then you put Mason in at guard. So, I don't know. You could see a big shuffle here if Tobias continues to play and get better as the season goes on.
Comment on Facebook from Fidi Lamas. Cool picture. Looks like. Do you think USC coaches will be making changes to the offensive line moving forward? Miller took a lot of hits. So you kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think they're going to do?
I would assume they're going to give Tobias more looks moving forward.
They have to. I would think you have to.
You don't get the bye weeks. You don't get to do a ton of shuffling, but I think he's shown enough in that environment to be able to say, hey, he can play. So I would be shocked if he didn't get any time against Wisconsin. I think they're going to use number 73, and Amos also got a lot of time, just filling it, or not filling in, but swapping in there. He was not as impressive as Tobias Raymond, but again, redshirt freshman hasn't played jack at all, and just to be able to step up and give them something, I think that says a lot. But yeah, Tobias Raymond, I think, his play is going to potentially alter the rest of the starting lineup, just because it looks like he can give them something, and maybe even be a starter by the time the season's over.
It comes down to what they want to do at left tackle, I think. If Elijah Page is in there, I don't feel like Mason Murphy's done enough to lose his job over Tobias Raymond. But if Mason Murphy's now your left tackle, then of course Tobias Raymond will be on the right side.
Yeah. Another question. This is a YouTube one. Tiki. Riley said there were a few returnable balls that were fair caught. Branch wasn't as decisive or explosive as we've expected of him. Why didn't the coach say something to him during the game?
I mean, I can't say for sure that he didn't say anything to him during the game. I take a lot of notes, but I don't get that close to get those conversations. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, Zachariah Branch, coming off the All-American year as a returner. I don't know, there's just kind of this, I don't want to say energy, but there's just like this, I don't know, I feel like maybe sometimes he's pressing. There's a lot of pressure on him every time he touches the ball. Finding that fine line of not putting the team in a bad spot. Teams aren't kicking to him, so he's not getting a ton of opportunities. I don't know. He's just in this weird sophomore season where they don't want to get it to him, and when he does get a ball, it's in a position where it's like, do I take the risk? Do I put my team potentially in a bad situation? Do I risk maybe getting hit and coughing up this ball, or do I say, hell yeah, go for it, and maybe make something happen? He's only made one happen, and that was in the LSU game where they kicked to him. I think that was off a penalty. I could be wrong. Yeah. So the only opportunity he's ever gotten is because the other team screwed up, and that was the only outcome, that he was going to get the ball. So it's just kind of this weird nexus for him as a sophomore where they don't want to get number one the ball, and maybe that's, getting his head a little bit. I don't know. I wanted to ask him more about that last week, but a lot of attention for him.
Well, I don't know why they didn't have him return the kickoff after Michigan scored that last touchdown. It wasn't like USC was going to go down with 30-something seconds left. And
give him a chance or something.
The field goal range. I feel like your best chance is to have the ball in your most explosive player's hand and then go from there. But he called that fair catch early. I feel like that was from the sideline.
Yeah.
A few times he has had a chance to, in that game, he did have a chance to return some punts. So Riley even acknowledged it, as the commenter said. Like he had some ones where we felt like he probably could have done better there. So I still think they're figuring that out. It was disappointing to see that because Riley talked all about in the bye week how they worked on special teams, especially the punt return unit. So I don't exactly know why not everyone's on the same page right now. I do feel like offensively he had that one drop, Branch, but he's getting a lot of heat. And without him yesterday, I don't think you're in the game. He to me, I know he had 11 targets and only I think 5 or 6 catches, but those catches, a lot of them are really important. And I still think he's developing as a receiver. He might not be as good as some people think right now, but you need him. He, in my opinion, is your best receiver.
We had a question, speaking of balls going to Zachariah Branch. Benjamin, what did Miller see on that pick six?
I think did we meet Benjamin?
I think so. Yeah.
Hey, Ben, thanks for the comment. What did he see? I think he was guilty of just staring down his receiver, Zachariah Branch. That was the first option, and he just got a little bit too comfortable, I think. And that's another example of Michigan doing their homework. And Will Johnson, the All-American that he is, he sort of knew what was coming, read Moss's eyes, and boom, he took it to the house. I don't think Moss was expecting that great of a play from a cornerback, of course, and then he goes the other way. I know some people have said Zachariah Branch should have fought back for the ball a little bit more. That's probably true as well. Overall, though, that's a throw you just can't make. So I think he thought Branch was open. Johnson made a great play on the ball. I don't think that was his man. Zachariah Branch, he came off his man to make the play. And sometimes it's just hard to account for someone who you don't see right away as the quarterback when the play is designed to go to a certain player. So just tough break for USC. A big mistake from Moss that he acknowledged after the game. He knows he can't make those mistakes. So I put that pretty much on him. Tough break.
Yeah, that USC made some mistakes in this game, and they were all like devastating. every run fit that you didn't like fulfill, like went for a touchdown or a huge run, or the one real big turnover goes for a touchdown the other way. That was tough. Facebook comment from Tony. He says, "Hey Ryan, yeah, you got your wish after these past years. I wonder what my wishes are. Okay, 1, Reggie coming back to USC and getting his Heisman back. 2, USC leaving the Pac-12 despite not going independent. And 3, USC not getting a coach who's affiliated with USC and getting the most qualified choices. What else needs to happen to get them to their old glory?" I think you're on the right track. I mean, just making good hires. And I know there's people questioning Lincoln Riley and stuff. I mean, as far as the time you hired him, you weren't going to get anybody better. Nick Saban wasn't coming. Would you rather have Lincoln Riley like Dabo Swinney and stuff? Kirby Smart's not coming there. But it was a bold move, I thought, for USC to get him. The resume he had, USC hasn't hired someone with a resume like that since Howard Jones in the 20s. So, like, that, just looking at the resume alone, he had accomplished more as a head coach than anyone USC's hired in 100 years. So that's an improvement. You could argue if it's good or if he's whatever. You might not like him, but his resume is better than anyone USC's hired for the last 100 years. So just keep that in mind. 2, Jen Cohen's a really good athletic director. I think she's going to be great. There's a hole that USC was dug into. They're coming out of it. So I think all of those things are good, are positives. I don't think Reggie getting his Heisman back matters about USC getting back to the old glory. I mean, that's nice to have, but that didn't matter. Leaving the Pac-12, yeah, I thought USC needed to like make some kind of moves there, and they did. And being the Big Ten, I think this year you can, get through your schedule, go 10-2, make the playoff if you're able to do that. And we'll see. The loss hurt. I mean, yeah. So I think everything's going in the right direction, but making the best hires at the top is what you need to do the most.
Was new facilities on that list?
It wasn't on there, but I mean, yeah, I'm not big on that, but yes, that they're getting those too, so that's going to help.
You heard it here first. Ryan Abraham, anti-facilities.
Recruit better in the trenches would be my answer for that. How do they return to their old glory? Recruit better in the trenches.
Yeah. Josh says, "Thanks for signing my hat, Chris."
Shout out to Josh. Signed his hat.
Oh wait, the wrong one came up. Sorry,
oh my
that was
goodness. He wanted me to sign on the top of the brim that included Adoree Jackson, Antoine Woods, and Tuli Tuipulotu. And I was like, there's no way my name deserves to be on these great Trojans. So I signed under the brim. So you can't see it, behind the scenes. So shout out to Josh. All the way out from Tennessee with his dad for this game. Sorry it wasn't a win for you. Sorry it wasn't a win for you.
Is Josh still winless?
I don't know.
I think I spoke to
Wherever
Josh
he
and
goes.
his dad. and
I'm not aware of the winless
I don't
thing.
think they've won. Josh, keep fighting, man. They'll get a win when you're there at some point.
Yeah. Tony wants to know, will attendance hit 70K for the Badgers? Wisconsin travels well. They're kind of a down bad team right now, but I think they're still going to like travel well.
Well, it's sold out, right? So in theory.
Yeah, it's sold out. So, but does that mean everyone's going to show up? I'm not sure.
People want to see the humiliation of Alex Grinch in the Coliseum from the other perspective.
Yeah. ISJST says Lincoln Riley is a mediocre coach. He's lucky to have been LSU. This Michigan game reminds me of the Notre Dame and Oregon game last year. Unprepared, timid, and scared, just like Riley. Like, have you seen what he's done he's 40 years old. He's been a head coach for 8 years. Like, no one in the history of college football has more first number 1 draft picks than Lincoln Riley. He's gone to multiple playoffs. Somewhere else. USC hasn't been to a playoff yet. Won multiple conference championships. I'm not sure why you would. I don't know how that's mediocre. Like, I don't get it. Sorry, you might not like him, but that doesn't mean he's a mediocre coach.
Yeah, what was the big offseason goal? What was the thing they needed to do? Make the defense better, and they did that. Lost a tough game to Michigan on the road. They were favored. Tough spot. Not going to let them off the hook for that. They should have won that game.
Yeah.
But what have we said, like, the whole time he's been here and people have been disappointed after losses? You really can't do much better. You have to just hope that Lincoln Riley figures stuff out to get to the promised land. And in the offseason, he unquestionably has taken steps to get them there with the weight gain, with the defensive coaching hires. Just look at how the defense is playing. Did he have a great game against Michigan? No. But are they trending in the right direction? Unquestionably, yes.
Oh.
They didn't have a great game, and they almost won. They almost won.
Firehouse Hostel wants to know why we're quiet on. Oh, that was too loud.
Jesus.
Why was that so loud?
Somebody clip that.
Yeah. What's going on with Bear Alexander, guys?
Same old. He missed the spring, and Gavin Meyer beat him out to earn a starting job. He's in the rotation. Some people are looking at his body language, and they're not happy with it. I haven't noticed that really. Why isn't he being like a game breaker? I think his role is a lot different this year, and I don't know. If the defense starts playing poorly, like, I'll look at him and be like, oh, why are you not the same? But when they're playing really well, it's tough to be like, oh, why isn't he having more of an impact? Eric Gentry's just having more of an impact, and other guys are having a little bit more of an impact. People are frustrated with Bear, but the defense is playing at such a high level, and he's a big part of that, even though he's not starting. I understand, like, after everything he did last year, he had a bigger role, but new coaching staff, and he's still in the mix. It's just maybe not what people expected. They're still really good. I don't really know. I think it's kind of a thing USC fans are all bent out of shape about, and I don't exactly know why.
Yeah. Roger wants to know, Riley needs to change his travel schedule to go a day earlier and see the stadium. USC can't be nervous like the first half again. Do you guys care about that at all? Or
Riley had a great quote when he was asked about that. He said, the sky's the same color everywhere we go.
Burn.
Don't need to go a day early because the sky looked the same as it does in L.A. That's just how he does it, and other coaches do it differently. I don't really think that matters. Some people think it matters more. Some people think that travel is this huge obstacle, which I don't necessarily think it is. It's all about how you prepare, how you practice, how healthy you are. And in this game, USC just made a few mistakes defensively, a lot on the offensive line. If they got there earlier, is the offensive line playing a lot better? I don't think so.
But what does getting there early do? Are you talking about the stadium?
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody in the stadium.
Yeah.
So, like, what?
they used I don't know if they still do. They used to do like walkthroughs on Friday nights, but I think with the travel, like maybe going a day early, it's 3-hour time zone. I get it. I think he was asked about it, but
I don't want to be ageist, but it's such an old person thing. You gotta get there a day early to get used to the stadium. Like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, because they were traveling on a bus back in the whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get attacked in the comments. It's okay.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Not my
Yeah.
first time.
No, I love it.
No, I said
Daniel,
me.
Oh.
We'll tag team.
you guys can both get attacked. Daniel, do you get you also get the impression that the wide receivers are running way too many static routes and stuff at the line of scrimmage when their speed, length, and height is their strength as a unit? I kind of think that USC, maybe because the protection wasn't there, they weren't doing a lot of that like what they were doing against LSU was those intermediate routes, and that opened up running lanes, and they weren't doing it. And I see this all the time in college football. When someone's generating a lot of pressure, they're throwing stuff at the line of scrimmage, and it's like, well, that's where everybody is. Like, I don't get, like, you have to try to push it beyond. And I feel like that was one of those things where USC missed an opportunity there to do that.
I think it was, to what you said, a lot to do with the protection. They just couldn't protect, so you got to get the ball out of Miller's hand quickly, and that was a way to try to help the offensive line. So that's a second guess, but he wasn't protected enough, I think, for the guys to run more down the field. They did have some nice completions down the field, too, so it wasn't like they were only doing these little static routes, to the commenter's point, but I think that was all about not trusting your offensive line.
Yeah, I just really want to see them push it down the field with those talented wide receivers. Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch to get him more downfield looks. So I think Jay Fair needs to play a little bit more. I think he could be a guy. He had 3 decent game, touchdown, 3 catches. He's an older guy. Maybe he's a guy that can be a little bit of a dependable set of hands because they really need someone to step up at the wide receiver position. Those sophomores are still going through growing pains. I know Zachariah Branch had 6 for 98 or something like that, but they really need someone to be a guy consistently and not, it's too up and down with these guys. One guy will make a play, and I know it's more committee, but I still think you need someone who can be a guy in tight moments in big quarters and things like that. They don't have Tosh Washington. They don't have Brendan Rice. I'm not saying those guys aren't walking through the door. You need to find them. You need to find someone who can give you a big third down reception dependably. They had too many ones where Miller put it there, but it just came out, and I don't know what's gonna happen late, but it doesn't feel good or look good. So I think that's gonna be a big guy down for him, a big safety valve. So they need someone to step up.
If Mackay is out for a little bit, I wonder if Jay Fair steps into that role.
Yeah.
And real quick, going back to the Bear Alexander question, I guess I didn't see this. He did only play 21 defensive snaps, so he wasn't in there as much as some other guys. But the point that I made, I think, still stands, where the defense is playing really well. And, yes, you want, in theory, your best defensive player to be doing really well and being a big part of it, so I get why there would be some questions. But until USC really struggles on the interior, which – okay, they made a few costly mistakes in the run game. I still think they're playing at such a high level to say, why aren't we getting more from this guy? I don't know if that makes a ton of sense.
What was his grade? I know it's early.
Average 66, run defense 67, tackling 71, pass rush 57. He's doing fine.
Someone in the comments earlier said Jay Fair could be like the Taj Washington of this year's team. So potentially,
I had the exact same thought. I think older guy, smaller guy, slot guy. Mackay Lemon probably out for a little bit with a head injury. So Jay Fair right there, and I think he could be someone that Miller builds a real chemistry with. So I think we need to see that blossom for this offense.
There's some people that were like, bring in who's the backup quarterback, bring him in, blah blah blah. It's like it's
funny. The second things start to go wrong, fire Riley. Danton Lynch should be the head coach. Bring in Jaden Maeva. It's crazy. USC football Twitter, I wouldn't have it any other way.
There was even a fire Chris Trevino. What did I do?
Oh, yeah. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Joan, our friend Joan, Miller doesn't have enough time to throw to anyone, always rushed. No, he was rushed a lot. And, he made some big-time throws. Certainly made some mistakes, too, and I don't think the play calling really helped him out that much. The pick six, you're going to put on him.
You can't take it out, but if you take out the pick six, he was nails.
Yeah. Can I just add a little? I did want to say, I think obviously Miller showed a lot in the Holiday Bowl, showed a lot in the LSU getting that touchdown drive. I think he showed even more in the Michigan game. Yeah, he had the pick six. That was really tough. But again, a lot of leadership on that sideline with him, trying to get that offensive line going, trying to get that offense going, or trying to get that offense to pick it up overall. And read some of my ghost notes. You'll see some of those observations of his leadership and just the toughness. He was getting peeled off the Michigan Stadium turf all afternoon, and he just kept coming back. I know he was really banged up after that. He took a lot of hits, but if you're going to be a quarterback, you got to show toughness, whatever level you play. And I think he showed that. Yeah, I think he's still telegraphing a little bit too much. And he threw the pick six. That was really bad. But yeah, they did not lose because of him. He showed a lot of toughness and a lot of leadership in a tough environment. So I do want to commend him for that. You can win a championship with Miller Moss as your QB. Got to keep him upright though.
Yeah, keep him upright. All right. Anything else, guys? You guys want to get off your chest?
Just looking here, Michigan had 19 yards of offense over its 5 second-half drives before Mullings had that big run. You can't ask for any more than that.
No,
so that's
not a first down. There's 0 first downs until that big run.
And I think the defense, like I said earlier this season, it just raises your floor so much. So tough loss to take, but it's going to be really hard to beat USC, and I don't know if Michigan has some NFL guys all over the place. Can an inferior opponent upset USC when this defense is playing at the level that we've seen these first 3 games, I think it's a tall order.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you can go ahead.
It's a tough one because I do believe in what Danton Lynn's done and the defense. And if you look at the percentage of mistakes they made, the number of plays they were out there, it's a very low percentage. But every single mistake, you could shoot yourself in the foot or you can blow your foot off. And USC blew their foot off every time they made a mistake. And that was a killer. And I don't think that's typical. And I think you're going to see that like every time. I mean, did they give up like a 20-yard run? No, everything was, 4 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, minus a yard. But then 43 or 60, it was the big ones just became massive instead of like a 15-yarder. And if they just gave up a couple of 15 yards instead of some of those huge mistakes, but their mistakes were blow your foot off mistakes and not shoot yourself in the foot. And that was just very unfortunate because I still would give the defense a high grade for what they did. I mean, what they faced. But yeah, that was a tough one.
The only thing I wanted to get off my chest is I'm bummed that Woody Marks play isn't going to become more iconic just because they didn't win.
Oh yeah,
just
might be the best play outside of the Malcolm Butler interception as a Patriots fan. That's up there. That's one of the most impressive plays I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I'm just bummed. I mean, I still think that's going to be like a storied play, but like them winning that game would have been like this right here. And so get prepared to watch that clip during his like NFL draft videos when they show him when he gets drafted. Like this guy, you're talking about Daniel Jeremiah, picture the voice, like you're talking about effort. Let me show you this clip from the Michigan game earlier in the season. Woody Marks runs down Big Kenneth Grant. Sorry, I was going on a little too long with that bit. But you see what I'm saying.
On the flip side, I feel like that pick 6 for Will Johnson, that's going to be played a ton when he gets picked.
Yeah, for sure.
The instincts.
He had
Look
one
at those
against
instincts.
He had one against Fresno State, I think, too. But yeah, and that one, we're in the press box, and it looked like Miller Moss threw an incomplete pass, and then it keeps rolling. And you're like, are you kidding? Like, they're not going to score when they were at 1st and goal from the 2. And, Michigan's returning this fumble. It's got to be overturned, right? And then Woody comes in there and steals it away. Pretty impressive. And then at that point, it was better off for USC for it to be a fumble because then they get the fumble back. Otherwise, it would have been 4th down or whatever. You had to kick a field goal instead of.
Big man wanted the glory, man.
They would
should have just gone down.
We got a last-minute super chat from RJ Focused. You bring in Jaden for a few plays because of his run ability. The QB run threat could have countered Michigan's pass rush.
Don't hate that idea, but all along Lincoln Riley said, I'm not playing 2 quarterbacks. So that's a Lincoln Riley thing.
Yeah. That's just not his thing. So, and I don't think just bringing in someone, it's not going to change the when Miller's in the game. And, he's the leader of this team. I think you have him out there for a reason. I don't know if you want to really mess with that. But that's just not stuff that Riley does. And totally get it. Would you like to see Miller like run a few of those instead of fake the handoff and then take off and run a couple times? Like, yeah, that might help. But you don't want to get him banged up. But I think something like that could loosen things up a little bit too.
He needs to slide if he runs.
Yeah, do a little slide there. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up. Great stuff. Thanks to everyone in the chat. I know we had a bunch of people on our Facebook feed. Thank you for that. We were able to put up some of the Facebook comments in there. And we also had like 300-something people on our YouTube chat. So thank you for that. And any of the super chats and everyone that was chiming in. And if you're listening across all of our podcasting platforms, we do put this up in podcast form as well. We appreciate all of that. And, of course, we appreciate Connor and Chris for being in here. We love it. They're doing a great job. Yeah.
I was nervous that was going to be really loud.
I know. I tried to turn it down a little bit. There was a lot. We had a lot of stuff on the soundboard going on today. Sorry. Lack of sleep. We had pizza late. Woke up super early for our flight, and been going kind of ever since. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap things up for Chris Trevino, Connor Morrissette. I am Ryan Abraham. Make sure you check out USCFootball.com for more. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.